It's here, guys. We've been waiting for this for a while, but Boris Johnson has deliberately misled MPs over partygate. The report finds and he should be banned from Parliament. We're going to have a look at this and some videos from Sky News, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here. I'm turning off the camera for the time being, just for most of this video, just so you guys can actually see the videos from Sky News, because I think it's very important for us to get it from them as well as reading the article. So obviously Boris Johnson deliberately misled MPs over partygate. The report finds and should be banned from Parliament. This has been a long time coming, guys. We knew this was going to happen, but he's kind of squeezed his way away from it, and I just think he's not going away, if I'm honest, guys. As much as I would like to say that, but let's have a look at this analysis from Sam Coates of Sky News and go from there, guys.
8-page document from the Privileges Committee. You can go, first of all, just to that very damning conclusion where they say that Boris Johnson should be suspended for 90 days, which is an extraordinary punishment proposed by a Conservative-led committee. Now, we've been going through some of the bits further into this document just to ascertain what the arguments are. What is it that means that those MPs have decided to judge Boris Johnson so harshly? And we're going to have a little look at what they concluded on gatherings. So here we are. It's quite a long way into the report. And essentially, they say that one of the arguments Boris Johnson deployed time and again was that it was absolutely essential or reasonably necessary for work purposes to have all of those thank yous, those leaving drinks, the birthday celebrations, the motivational events. If you remember in the committee hearing, Boris Johnson made absolutely clear, and the committee note this, that is an important part of being a boss at an organisation, and therefore that's what he was doing. But
So he was basically saying that those thank yous and gatherings of thank you staff and all that kind of stuff was important, which I don't think was important. I don't think it was necessary at all. I think that was, I think it was a bit over the top, my personal opinion. I think it was completely unnecessary to have had those. It didn't need to be. And he's trying to claim like these were important parts. They just simply was not, in my opinion.
What the committee basically decided, they decided that while 5 of the 6 events do focus on thanking staff for working hard or raising morale, but they don't believe that is a permitted activity under the rules. We do not believe that, if asked at this time whether unsocially distanced leaving dues to maintain staff morale were permitted under the rules and guidance, he would have been advised he would not have advised the British public that they were. And so essentially what they're doing is mounting an argument there of hypocrisy, which is one of the charges, coupled with the fact that he did it too, and his team did it too, that the committee have seized upon.
Yeah, see, this is the problem. Like it was absolutely hypocritical for him to tell the British public and others, you can't have parties, you can't have gatherings whatsoever, but they can. One rule for them, one rule for another, and it's just plain wrong. It was just plain wrong. He literally broke the rules. That was the fundamental fact. These gatherings that were thank yous and that were not necessary. They were not necessary, and it stings a lot to a lot of people out there.
They also talk about how there was no obvious social distancing at any of the events for which the committee have photographs. Now, actually, we've already seen quite a lot of the photographs, and they're later on in this report. But the committee has decided to judge him quite harshly on the fact that they can't see people maintaining social distances. We have no evidence of substantive mitigations in place in the rooms or areas where the gathering took place. You remember one of the arguments that Downing Street tried to mount.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just with the defence was just paltry, to be fair, guys. It was just absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, let's dive into this. So, a parliamentary inquiry has conducted, saying dive into it, we already have. Parliamentary inquiry has concluded that Boris Johnson knowingly misled Parliament multiple times with his statements about parties in Downing Street during the COVID pandemic. The Privileged Committee of MPs found Mr Johnson's breaches serious enough to recommend a suspension of 90 days if he was still an MP, far exceeding the periods needed to trigger a recall petition and a possible by-election. In a highly anticipated report published this morning, the committee found that Mr Johnson, so this is what they published and have found Boris Johnson too, misled MPs on multiple occasions by insisting all rules have been followed in Downing Street, despite lockdown breaching parties, was deliberately disingenuous when he tried to explain and justify the gatherings, breached the confidence of the committee, committed further contempt in his conduct by impugning the committee, thereby undermining the democratic process of the House of Commons, and was complicit in the campaign of abuse and attempted intimidation of the committee. This is insane. This is dictatorship. You know, this is a madman. You know, and that's what he's painting himself as a madman. He's trying to take power away from Parliament, from the House of Commons, and try to say, like, I'm different from every one of you. I'm allowed to break the rules. I'm allowed to do things differently. You know, to paint that persona of him being different, it's just wrong, and we know it. Apologies if you hear noise in the background, but it's absolutely ridiculous. He lied to MPs. He misled the committee. And he kept changing his story consistently as well. It was just so ridiculous. In a further sanction, the committee also recommended that Mr Johnson should not be given a former member pass granting access to Parliament following his resignation as an MP. The former Prime Minister has been under investigation by the Commons Privilege Committee since last June, after an investigation by the police and then civil servant Sue Gray confirmed that a series of gatherings had taken place during lockdowns. Yes, the whole waiting for the Sue Gray report. That was their line when this was going on. It's just like, wait for Sue Gray's report, wait for Sue Gray's report, wait for Sue Gray's report. Keep differing and delaying and trying to point and make people look elsewhere and not think about it. Well, the problem is that this was always going to sting and hurt the Conservative Party. This was always going to sting and hurt the British public. You know, people, may not always hear it in the media, but there are still people who are very angry, very upset, very disheartened that they've lost loved ones or not been able to spend time with their loved ones because of the pandemic. And while they've been unable to do that, Boris Johnson has had parties and gatherings and whatnot, and it just stung. And it don't matter whether you're left, right, centre, whatsoever. The human side of it, you cannot get away from that, guys. You just cannot. The cross-party committee led by Labour MP Harriet Harman addresses whether Mr Johnson misled Parliament either recklessly or deliberately, with his statements claiming all COVID rules and guidance were followed by Number 10. In a scathing 3,000-word assessment, the committee said that in deliberately misleading the House, Mr Johnson committed a serious contempt. The contempt was all the more serious because it was committed by the Prime Minister, the most senior member of government. There is no precedent for the Prime Minister having been found to have deliberately misled the House. Yeah, it's, of all people, a former Prime Minister, the Prime Minister at the time, guys.
I think they need to be particularly tough because the offences were committed by the Prime Minister, the most senior member of the government. They say there is no precedent for a Prime Minister having been found to have deliberately misled the House. So it's a moment of history. It's a line in the sand. They're creating a marker here. He misled the House on an issue of the greatest importance to the public and did so repeatedly. So that's the first crime. The second crime, they say, is he declined our invitation to reconsider his assertions that what he said to the House was truthful. In other words, they were also crossed because he refused to go back and correct the record. The point of being so tough on Boris Johnson is to send a signal that that kind of behaviour isn't good enough. And then
see, that's the other thing as well. When he changed his story, he was told, well, you need to go and correct the record then because you misled the story. If it was whether intentional or unintentional, you need to correct the record. And he never did it. and it set a precedent for other MPs to do the same thing. I mean, we still hear it now from Suella Braverman, and from, she's the worst of them all, consistently lying in the houses of in Parliament about and making up statements, and no one's doing anything about it. How many times have there been point of orders? You see them consistently on Daily Blase's channel. He's doing the videos of showing in the Houses of Parliament, Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, constantly lying about numbers or statements that she's making. And then there's point of orders from the opposite side saying that what she's saying is inaccurate information, and they're asking her to correct the record. And nothing's happening because they can't force her to change the record. And Boris Johnson here, he's under you can't make him change the record. And it's outrageous. This is a massive problem with our fundamental, the system that we have is just broken, and it's old, and it needs complete and utter reform, because they are allowed to get away with this.
They also say that they were furious that when they sent, under conditions of strict confidentiality, their provisional report to Mr. Johnson, he then leaked it. They're effectively trying to draw a line under the Boris Johnson era. They it's ridiculous. Like, it's strict confidentiality, and he goes and pulls it out. Like, it's just insane, absolutely insane, guys. You sometimes just wonder yourself, how is this guy? How did this guy become Prime Minister? You just cannot believe it. Final knife thrust in a protracted political assassination. The former Prime Minister immediately hit back in what he called a deranged conclusion and branded the committee's report as charade, adding, "I was wrong to believe in the committees or its good faith." The vast majority of it was Conservative. The evidence is there. The evidence is there. Like, this is the thing. This is so Trumpyism from Boris Johnson. So Trumpyism. Like, people will argue, well, he brought the vaccines in during the pandemic and all this kind of stuff. Yes, you tell that to those who lost loved ones. While he partied while people died. There was allegedly, he had a comment saying, "Let the bodies pile high." This is, wake up. There are still people out there who still believe this man. It's absolutely crazy. Got Brexit done. Well, how's Brexit going, by the way? He took particular aim at Mrs. Harman, saying that the terrible truth is that it's not I who has twisted the truth that suits to my purpose. It's Harry and Harman and her committee. No. What they say is what their committee. I'm generally in the belief that their committee was right. What benefit? Why would the committee mislead people? Why would the committee go out of their way to target Boris Johnson, despite the fact that the vast majority of it were Conservatives? It's just this whole farce from Boris Johnson is just ridiculous. He won't. He's such a selfish person, so selfish. He was saved by the NHS, and he's happy to watch it get torn down. When he was dying from COVID, they helped save his life. No soul, that man. This is a dreadful day for MPs and for democracy, he said. No, there was no happy ending to this, guys. To say that this is great that he's been, because of this report or anything like that. No, there's no satisfaction in any of this, guys. People lost loved ones, and they want some kind of justice. And are they going to get that justice? Are they? Because I don't think they are. There's no victory in any of this, guys. There's no victory in any of this. Adding his investigation had delivered what is intended to be the final knife thrust in a protracted political assassination. Johnson had personal knowledge of gatherings. In coming to its conclusion, the MPs did not find Mr. Johnson's defence that no one had advised him the gatherings were against the rules as credible. The ex-PM repeatedly asserted he believed one number 10 leaving do,
when he was seen toasting colleagues to mark the departure of Communications Chief Lee Kang was absolutely essential for work purposes. But the committee again found against him, saying he did not believe that several staff morale pressures during the COVID pandemic in itself provide a license for Mr. Johnson's conveniently flexible interceptions of the rules on gatherings or the guidance on social media. He kept changing his position every time more information came out. He lied to our faces. A campaign group representing families bereaved in the pandemic said Mr. Johnson should never have been allowed to stand in any form of public office again. David Groffrey, a spokesperson for the COVID-19 bereaved family of Justice UK, said, "This is another grim reminder as while families like mine were saying goodbye to our loved ones over Zoom, the same Prime Minister had failed us so badly in the first place that breaking his own rules that he could have a party and a laugh. Johnson has shown no remorse. Instead, he lied to our faces when he told us that he had done all he could to protect our loved ones. He lied again when he said the rules hadn't been broken in number 10. And he lied ever since when he's denied it again and again." This is the problem. He never apologised, guys. He never apologised. You know, when you make mistakes in life, you have to own up to them and apologise. It's so important. And he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that. The family says it was an utter tragedy that Johnson was in charge when the pandemic struck. If this would have been Jeremy Corbyn, whatever you think of Jeremy Corbyn, he would have been a hell of a lot more sympathetic, and he probably would have done more. Regardless of policies and ideologies and whatnot, that man would have saved more lives if he was in charge. Absolutely no question. Whether you like Jeremy Corbyn or hate Jeremy Corbyn or whatever his policies or whatever, if we had him in charge instead of Boris Johnson, more lives would have been saved. Without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. And his fall from grace must serve as a lesson to other politicians to act with honesty and to serve the public as a whole. That the only positive that can come from this. Yeah, that's the only positive. But are they gonna? No. There's nothing that forces them to do that, guys. That's the thing. Nothing that will force them to do that. So, former Conservative MP Anthony General Dominic Rees reacts to the Privilege Committee's report, guys. So let's hear what he had to say.
All day to see a Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, attacking Parliament when previously he said that the sovereignty of Parliament and Parliament as an institution was so important to him. And that's what I find extraordinary with Mr. Johnson. Everything is fine. Everything is important until he decides it isn't.
Exactly. If when it's helpful to him, he'll say it's all right. But when it's against him, that's when he's like, no, they're bad people. He changes his tune He changes his tune to whatever suits his needs, not the needs of the people, to himself. That's the problem.
The truth is, this committee on the evidence has done its very best to look at the evidence of Mr. Johnson's misdoings. And frankly, the evidence against Mr. Johnson as Prime Minister is overwhelming over partygate, that he misled the House. The issue was never, did he have parties? That's one thing. The issue is, did he mislead the House of Commons in answering questions at the dispatch box in a manner that was going to that brought him into the contempt? And it's absolutely abundantly clear that that happened. And as I say, it's not just a difference of interpretation of was I standing up holding a glass at an event which I didn't think was a party but I thought was a work event. It's the fact that the committee's been able to establish that when he came to the dispatch box, he made statements which he knew were disagreed with by his own officials.
This is the fundamentals of this all. He misled the House on numerous occasions, and he knew he did, and his ministers and Conservative MPs knew that. And also, he never corrected the record on them. He knew he was lying. But the stupid thing is, because of the way that the way the system works is, you can't go in there and accuse them of lying. Such a broken system.
Who had said, well, you can't say that. I think that for me, that's one of the most damning aspects of this report. But overall, Mr. Johnson just chucks up smoke screens in all directions. So as I say, here's somebody who says Parliament is really important. After all, it was the centrepiece of his Brexit, wasn't it? Parliament's sovereignty must be restored. But when actually the House of Commons exercises its sovereign right to discipline and to investigate a member of Parliament who might be in contempt, then it's all complete rubbish.
Yeah, because he'll change his tune to whatever suits his needs. He's not gonna let if it's not in his benefit, he's gonna change his tune. Exactly. Desperate stuff. The publication of the report comes after Mr. Johnson dramatically quit as an MP on Friday after receiving his draft findings in a last attempt to disparage the Tory majority panel on the eve of the publication. He called for the most senior Conservative members to resign. He accused Sir Bernard Jenkins of monstrous hypocrisy after the Geigo Fawkes website reported that the MP had gone to a drinks party while Parliament held by Commons Speaker Dame Enna while COVID restrictions were in place in 2020. Yeah, the famous case of wine bottles in the case, guys, if you remember that. But Mr. Johnson was accused of attempting to distract from the report's findings by opposition MPs, while a source close to the committee report dismissed the intervention as a desperate stuff. We will have a look at that, some of the key moments from the Evidence Privilege Committee in just a moment, guys. Absolutely absurd. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey said following the publication of the report that Mr. Johnson was a liar and lawbreaker who has treated the public with utter disdain. On Monday, MPs will be given a free vote on whether to endorse the committee's report, to whether to remove Mr. Johnson's pass to the parliamentary estate. Downing Street did not say whether the Prime Minister would be presented for the vote or how he would vote. Some Conservatives said to the former Prime Minister's defence, with Brendan Clark-Smith saying that it was appalled what I have read and the spiteful vindication and overreaching conclusions of the report. Mate, you are not paying attention. You are blatantly lying there. You have not read you've not been paying attention at all, and you're just blind loyalty to the former Prime Minister. There's nothing but blind loyalty there. The evidence is there. It's always been there, and he's just ignoring it. He tweeted, "I won't be supporting the recommendations and we'll be speaking against them both publicly and in the House on Monday." Yeah, you do that. And I hope it all falls on deaf ears. "I'm backing fairness and justice, not kangaroo courts." Ivor Misfane also said it was absolutely absurd and unnecessary for Mr. Johnson to be denied a pass to the parliamentary estate, while former Level Up Secretary Simon Clarke said he was amazed at the harshness of the committee's report. Yeah, guys. Yeah, sure. Sure it was. Alright, let's have a look at some of the highlighted evidence, guys.
That you can conceivably find me guilty of wittingly misleading Parliament on the basis of the evidence that you have assembled. I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give for this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
What an insult to God that is, to hold that. Disgraceful man.
Thank you very much.
I'm here to say to you, hand on heart, that I did not lie to the House. When those...
You did lie, and we just seen the evidence. So he's already lied.
Statements were made, they were made in good faith and on the basis of what I honestly knew and believed at the time. The vast majority of the events relied upon by the committee are events I attended for 10 or 15 minutes, perhaps a maximum of 25 in one case, to say farewell to a departing colleague.
Really? 25 minutes? You don't think that was maybe a concern? A health concern? These gatherings? Didn't think they were illegal. Did not cross his mind whatsoever.
I know that people around the country will look at those events and think they look like the very kind of events that we, or I, were forbidding to everyone else. But I will believe till the day I die that it was my job to thank staff for what they had done, especially during a crisis like COVID, which kept coming back, which seemed to have no end, and when people's morale did, I'm afraid, begin to sink.
There's absolutely no, I'm not arguing upon the fact that civil servants were under immense pressure at that time. Nobody is disputing that civil servants were under immense pressure to deliver vaccines, deliver all the safeguards, all the measurements necessary to protect its people, and nobody is dismissing that there would not have been morale being hit in the civil service. Nobody is saying that it would not have been hard for the civil service. That doesn't justify, with all due respect, it does not justify what he did. It does not justify the fact that they were okay to have these gatherings. It's not justifiable. It's not. Because these were not work events. These were not necessary. If you wanted to have a farewell of some sort, well, do it on the phone. Do it like a group video call or something, to show people, we're saying goodbye to one of our colleagues here on the video call or Zoom or whatever, or have a very, it just makes it, as much as he's trying to paint this picture that it's okay, it's not okay. It's just not.
But never mind what I think, the more important point is that the police agreed. They did not find that my attendance at any of these farewell gatherings was against the rules.
That's because the police work for the government. Of course, they were not going to... Oh, dear.
I obviously did not know at the time that any of these events later escalated beyond what was lawful after I left.
Would you have advised anyone else in the country, if they'd asked you at one of the press conferences at that time, to have a large social gathering in the garden?
It was not a large social gathering. It was a gathering intended, and I really must insist on this point. People who say that we were partying in lockdown simply do not know what they are talking about.
Right. So all these drinks and all this stuff, it wasn't parties. Right, you make of what you will, of that in the comments below, guys, on that statement there.
The people who say that that event was a purely social gathering are quite wrong. My purpose there was to thank staff, to motivate them in what had been a very difficult time and what was also a very difficult day in which the Cabinet Secretary had just resigned.
So I put it to you, Mr. Johnson, you did not take proper advice.
Can I?
He didn't. He was told what he was doing was wrong. And he still kept doing it.
Well, can I respond first by saying that if you look at what I said on December the 1st, you have to, it is true, as Mr. Carter said, that I had expected something like that question to come up. But actually, I thought that the Leader of the Opposition would not bother with that story.
Okay, that's irrelevant.
It is relevant.
The question is, why did you not take proper advice?
Sorry. The answer is quite simply that over the, and I've tried to
Yes. What's the answer? Why didn't you take advice?
describe what I felt about these events as they were happening. Nobody raised with me or had any concern before I stood up on December the 1st about those events.
You did not ask.
I did say, this is complete nonsense. I mean, complete nonsense.
He's asking you a straightforward question, and all you need is to give a straightforward answer. And he can't do it. He just can't do it.
I asked the relevant people. They were senior people. They'd been working very hard. They gave Jack Doyle gave me a clear account of what had happened.
The Cabinet Secretary.
How the Cabinet Secretary wasn't there? Sorry, you're wrong, because I did ask the Cabinet Secretary. And I did ask the Cabinet Secretary to conduct an inquiry on the...
Is it me, or does it feel like he's changing his story as he's going along here? It's not just me going mad here. Surely you guys are seeing this too.
7th of December.
Not about whether your undertakings to the House of Commons were correct.
But of course that was what he was...
We can move on.
Your supporters, I'm not saying you, I'm saying your supporters seem to want it both ways. They're hoping that the evidence you've given in 52 pages will exonerate you, give you a clean bill of health, That's what your desired outcome is. But just in case that doesn't happen, there has been a concerted effort to delegitimise the committee, to call us a kangaroo court. Have you characterised us as a kangaroo court?
You can tell by my presence this afternoon, by the seriousness with which I've taken your questions, by my attempts to answer in detail the points you've put to me, how seriously I take you and your committee, the respect I have for this institution of Parliament, and for better or worse, whatever the issues of fairness that I may have raised in my submission, this is the body that decides on standards and privileges. This is the committee that does it. There's no other way of doing it. That's...
Okay. He's... wait, hold on a second. Let's go back up a second, guys, just before we wrap up. Hold on a second. You just heard what he just said. You just heard what he said. What we just said earlier. This was a protracted political assassination here. Political assassination, he said. He took particular aim at Miss Arms, saying the terrible truth is not that who I twisted the truth that suits my purpose. It is Harry Hartman and committee. I was wrong to believe in the committee or its good faith. Deranged conclusion. Branded the committee's report as charade. And you just heard him saying that he would trust and faith in the committee. Just there, right there, guys. Just there. What more do I need to add? Like, literally, I've just added it right there. How he just switched and changed his tune to suit his own needs, guys. It could not be... it could not be more obvious to us. It's insane. But, as I've said in other videos regarding Boris Johnson, guys, he's not going anywhere. He's going to be around until he actually faces criminal charges or some kind of time in prison. The media will still report on him. He will not go away. Don't think he will. Don't start thinking like Boris Johnson. Like, is his political career over? I just feel like this is a guy that's never going to go away whatsoever. And we should be very wary of that. That is for sure. But it's such a dark day in democracy because he took advantage of every single of our system and ripped it apart, and ripped apart the honour and integrity of MPs by getting rid of Conservatives that he didn't like. And when he took over, put in right-wing rhetoric, he's caused so much harm. He set the precedent for the real harm of the establishment here. You know, you can argue David Cameron, George Osborne and their policies and whatnot, and rightfully so, but he really did damage democracy, truth and honesty. He really destroyed it with his way, and it's just terrible to see. But what do you guys think of the report? What do you guys think of Boris Johnson? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your feedback on it, guys. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope to hear from you all very, very soon.